Hey everyone, we're doing Chapter 3, Lesson 1. It is add and subtract decimals. So after scanning the lessons, some things we'll be learning about. We're going to be learning how to line up decimals. We will be adding and subtracting decimals. And we are going to add placeholders. We're actually going to add zeros as placeholders. So we're going to check out the real world link. So it says swimming. One event in competitive swimming is the women's 100-meter butterfly. The table shows the times of different swimmers at a recent Olympics. So we have Lisbeth Trickett. She's at 56 seconds and 73 hundredths. Christine Magnussen, we don't know hers. Gabriela Silva is at 58 and 1/10 seconds. So we're going to solve two problems. Number one, it took Christine Magnussen 37 hundredths seconds longer to finish than Elizabeth Trickett. What was Magnussen's time in seconds? So he already has the work shown for us, so we're going to add. Notice how the decimals are lined up together, as well as the place value of the numbers. So 3 plus 7 equals 10. 1 plus 7 plus 3 equals 11. 1 plus 6 equals 7. And 5 plus nothing is going to be 5. So our answer is 57 and 1/10 of a second. Number 2. At a high school meet, a swimmer swam the women's 100-meter butterfly in 72 and 34 hundredths seconds. How many seconds faster did Gabriela Silva swim her race? So we line up our decimals, and we also lined up all the numbers at the same place value. So on top, we have the high schoolers, and on bottom, we have Gabriela. And this time we're subtracting. So we have 4 minus 0 equals 4. 3 minus 1 equals 2. 2 minus 8, we cannot do that, so we have to borrow from the tens place. 7 is going to become a 6, and the 2 is going to become a 12. So we have 12 minus 8 equals 4, and 6 minus 5 equals 1. So our final answer is going to be 14 and 24 hundredths of a seconds. Moving on to page 178, we're going to add decimals. So example 1 says find the sum of 23 and 1/10 and 5 8/10. So we're going to look at the word sum, and just a short review, the sum is the answer of an addition problem. So we're going to be adding this. So we have 23 and 1/10, and I'm going to line up my decimals and line up my place values. And we have 5 and 8/10. So my 1 and my 8 are both in the 1ths place. So 1 plus 8 equals 9. 3 plus 5 equals 8. 2 plus nothing equals 2. So our final answer is 28 and 9/10. In example 2, it says find the sum of 29 and 6/10 and 14 and 7/10. Since we're finding the sum again, we will be adding. First, it's going to ask us to estimate. So we have to ask ourselves, is 29 and 6/10, is that closer to 30 or is that closer to 29? And since our last digit is a 6 or 5 or more, you go up, 4 and below, you go down. So our 29 and 6/10 is going to be closer to 30. And that means 14 and 7/10, because it is a 7, that means it is going to be closer to 15. So we have 30 plus 15, or we can say we have 45. So now that we estimated, we're going to try doing this with our actual numbers. So we have 29 and 6/10 plus 14 and 7/10. So we have 6 plus 7 is going to be 13. 1 plus 9 plus 4 is going to be 14. And 1 plus 2 plus 1 is going to be 4. So we have our answer of 44 and 3/10, and that is close to 45. So we can confirm that our answer is going to be 44 and 3/10. Just a reminder, make sure we have these decimals lined up and we have all of our place values lined up. So we're going to try the got it, and this is the time it's going to be your turn. So go ahead and pause the video and try A, B, and C. So these are your answers, and this is all the work. So your answers should look like mine. Just remember, it's very important that we line up all of our decimals like shown, and all of our place values are also lined up with each other. So we are going to move on to page 179, and this is when we're going to be focusing on subtracting decimals. So example 3, find the difference of 5 and 774 thousandths and 2 and 371 thousandths. So the main word we're going to look at is difference. So this is our review word. Difference is the answer of a subtraction problem. So we're going to take 5 and 774 thousandths, and we're going to subtract that from 2 and 371 thousandths. So we have 4 minus 1 equals 3, 7 minus 7 equals 0, 7 minus 3 equals 4, and 5 minus 2 equals 3. So things I did, I made sure all my decimals lined up with each other and all of the place values lined up as well. So our final answer should be 3 and 403 thousandths. Example 4, we have 6 minus 4 and 78 hundredths. So remember at the beginning when we talked about the placeholders with the zeros? That's actually what we're going to do now. So we have to line up our decimals and line up our place values. If we add any zeros after a decimal, our number is going to remain the same. So this is still 6, is equivalent to the whole number of 6. So now that we are still subtracting, I'm going to fix that for us. We are still subtracting, so we have 0 minus 8. Now, we should know that we cannot do 0 minus 8, so we actually have to borrow. And we cannot borrow from another 0, so we're going to borrow from the 6. So the 6 is going to become a 5, and the 0 is going to become a 10. Now that that's a 10, we can borrow from that 10, and that 10 is going to become a 9, and our 0 is going to become a 10. So we have 10 minus 8 equals 2, 9 minus 7 equals 2, 5 minus 4 equals 1. So our final answer is going to be 1 and 22 hundredths. In example 5, we're going to do the same thing. So we have 23 minus 4 and 216 thousandths. So just remember, our decimal places are lined up, and now we're going to line up all of our numbers, all of our place values. So we have 23, and we're going to add 3 zeros as our placeholders. We have 4, and we're going to have 216 thousandths. So same concept as before. Zeros cannot borrow from other zeros. So we're going to go all the way to this 3 and borrow from the 3. 3 becomes a 2. 0 becomes a 10. And we're going to borrow from the 10, so the 10 becomes a 9. 0 becomes a 10. Now, with our 0, we can borrow from the 10. The 10 is going to become a 9. And finally, our 10, or our 0, becomes a 10. So we have 10 minus 6 equals 4, 9 minus 1 equals 8, 9 minus 2 equals 7, 2 minus 4 we actually cannot do, so we're going to do one more borrow. 2 is going to become a 1, and our 12, and our 2 becomes a 12. 2 minus 4 equals 8, and 1 minus nothing equals 1. So our final answer is going to be 18 and 284 thousandths. So go ahead and pause the video and try D, E, and F. So here are the answers for D, E, and F. It's just very important that we make sure that all of our decimals are lined up along with all of our place values of all of our numbers. So the ones place is with the ones place, the ones place is with the ones place, and the tens and tenths, and any other numbers further than that. Also in E, make sure that we carry the $sign in our answer because you may still get it wrong without that $sign. But we're going to move on to example 6. It says, Reagan is creating a video. The first clip was 22 and 36 hundredths minutes long. The second video clip was 17 and 300ths minutes long. What is the total length of the video? So when we look at this, we want to ask ourselves, what's the key phrase that's going to tell us which operation we're going to use? So go ahead and circle the key phrase, what you think it is. If you circled total length, that means you are correct. Total length is going to tell us that we're going to add, because we want to know how long is both the videos combined. So we're going to add. And I'm going to line up my decimals. And now my place values, 22 and 36 hundredths and 17 and 300ths. And we're going to add those. So we have 6 plus 3 equals 9, 3 plus 0 is 3, 2 plus 7 is 9, 2 plus 1 is 3. So we have 39 and 39 hundredths minutes long. And because this is a word problem, we have to make sure we include our units. Units are your best friends. Our units in this one is going to be minutes long. So go ahead and pause the video and try G. So I didn't do the work for G. I'm actually going to walk us through it just for better clarity. So like example 6, what key phrase is going to help us solve this problem? Jonathan is traveling for work. This morning his GPS indicated that the total distance to his destination is 589.4 miles. Before lunch, he drove 208 and 62 hundredths miles. How much farther did Jonathan need to travel? So the key phrase is going to be how much farther? How much farther does Jonathan need to travel? And how much farther, that means that we are going to subtract. So we have 589 and 4/10 minus 208 and 62 hundredths. Now since we're missing something in the tenths place, we're going to add a little placeholder as a 0 and subtract. So the 4 is going to become a 3, 0 to 10. And the 10 minus 2 equals 8. 3 minus 6 we cannot do. So we're going to borrow. So 13 minus 6 is 7. 8 minus 8 is 0. I'm going to line up my decimals. 8 minus 0 is 8. And 5 minus 2 equals 3. So we have 380 and 78 hundredths miles. Now, along with this, I'm also going to include a picture. So if we have the total distance is 589 and 4/10 miles, and we have already traveled about 262 miles long, how much further do we have to go? So if we subtract both of these, we get the remaining distance of 380 miles, or 378 hundredths miles. Now, those were the notes for Chapter 3, Lesson 1. So, thank you for watching.